All right. Can we get this going? Heard from streamers wasn't always clear when their streams need to be labeled as mature. All right, that's good to know. Well, let's just get in here. Hi, everybody. Welcome. How you doing? What is... Oh, one of my... What happened with that guy? That light is out, and it's a little murky over here because of it. Excuse me. I'm blind. I'm fine. How are you? I got with Chip. Welcome back, everybody. How are you? Happy Wednesday. Whew, I'm a little sleepy. It was a great night last night. Super fun. If you haven't seen the pics and some of the other stuff on Twitter, there's more to come. And is there a gas leak? No, but there's a fire not too far. I'm sure CSL knows what I'm talking about. We're downwind from a fire, so everybody in the house is. I flew back this morning from LA after doing the show last night, and there's some gunk in the air because of the fire. There's an apartment building like a few miles from us that caught fire, like a construction site, and so it's all wood. Like it was just a giant, just a wood structure that hadn't quite been built, and then that's it. And then it all blew around. So everybody's got I think I have allergies today. I'm like, nah, you're just breathing smoke. It's just smoke. It's I guarantee that during that shit in New York, when the Canadian wildfires were blowing smoke into New York, and everybody's like, it's the apocalypse. And 2 days later, they're like, what are we doing next? I think we should. I've been thinking about the Hamptons. Right. Anyways, this particular area, that fire, yeah, you drove through it. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. It jumped the freeway, burned some trees on the other side. It's not good. So, anyways, more wildfires predicted. Well, yes, there is a Stargal. We do have a wildfire season. All of these places do. So I guess you can never go wrong with predicting that kind of stuff. And hi, chat room, by the way. Good morning. Welcome. How are you? Whew. I'm a little, in Ontario. Yes, I know. In Ontario, yes. And what do you think? Arson? Because you guys busted a bunch of arsonists up there. Yeah, wildfire season's one thing, but when the arsonists kind of try to jumpstart making people care, they do the exact opposite. It's like just for the record, arson is always attempted murder. No wildfires from the dryness and heat. No, I understand that. What I'm saying is there can be dryness and heat without anything sparking a wildfire. And there you go. She ran calling wildfire. I love that song. I'm just saying. Wildfires near the freeway again. Yeah, well, I blame the Jewish space lasers. Yes. Anyways, I will be a little laggy for the first part of the show. Talk amongst yourselves, because it was I didn't get out of the jam because I played guitar last night as well as singing. So I didn't leave the jam till 1:40, something like that, after saying hi and bye to everybody. And we had a lot of special guests that were there, and it was really, really nice. We had the Juan Garcia, who was, Metallica largely started with him jamming with Lars Ulrich in San Francisco. He came and played. We had members of Flotsam and Jetsam, which was, people might remember, is Jason Newsted's old band before he moved over to Metallica. I'm sorry, Moms Russo. I understand that. Yes, we had, it has a not too similar bit of nostalgia for me. Not my mom, of course, but a babysitter that I had. No, did D. Snyder show up? No, he didn't, but his son did. Jesse Snyder sang last night. He was great. Tom Hartman was on Political Girl last night. That's cool. Again, I'm trying to get people on that don't have their own show already. Hey, Al, in hospital with a broken leg. You're the best. Oh, hey, I'm sorry, 1979. I'm sorry that you're laid up, but I'm glad we can be here for you. Can you feel this? Can you feel that? Oh dear, I think we're gonna have to amputate. I'm sorry. Bad news. Did Tom Hartman say no? You could watch Hal take a nap. You might have to at some point, I have to say. Canute's in the house. All right. One of my favorite had known the California inspector. One of my friends had known the California fire inspector turned arsonist for years. He was like a brother to her and had talked about writing a book about arson as fire inspector. Turned out to be true. Right. It's a weird mix. D. Snyder is indeed cool. We like him. Anyone else see Bobo Reader impeachment of Joe Biden? Yeah, I talked to her. We'll look at the trends in a second because I tweeted at her earlier, specifically because she was doing her like, enough talk. We've got to impeach Joe Biden. And I was like, why exactly? Honestly, why? Other than policies you don't like and disagreements, because fuck, if that was the standard, it'd be just nonstop impeachment trials all the time. On our side of the aisle, at least we had evidence that Trump was dangling around with the Russians. But let's see. I'm gonna look in my trendages. Yeah. So this was my my response to it this morning. There we go. She's like, enough talk. Impeach Joe Biden. I'm like, why? I'm dead serious. Like, I don't. Other than she's like, I've seen enough. I haven't seen any evidence, but I've seen allegations of a guy who heard from a guy who thought a thing about a guy, and that's enough for me. Okay, get him out of there. Let Kamala Harris be Oh, that's how it works? Shit. Well, let's impeach her too, and then it'll be Kevin Oh, fuck. So, hi, Tom. Let's see. By the way, I'm going to cover more of the Trump thing this afternoon. Holy hell. This answer, I mean, if this sums up Trump's just complete inability to fathom what the like his own shit. Hold on, let me open this. This is like, and Brett and kudos to Brett Baer for just like dropping this on him, just walking him into this rig. Like, here you go, Grandpa, out into the yard. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Right up to there. Yeah, just now I want you to, keep your eyes closed. And when I tell you to, I want you to take the next big step as hard as you can. As hard as you can. You think you can do that? I could totally do it. All right, go for it. And then good kapow. Watch this and the list of former members of his cabinet who have turned against him, are running against him, or refuse to endorse him, or flat out say he's nuts. These two moments are probably the biggest evidence, if anybody needed it, that Fox sent a torpedo Trump's way, and it caused a hull breach. Watch this.
I focused on nonviolent crime.
I focused on nonviolent crime.
Example, a woman who you know very well.
He forgot her name. By the way, individual drug dealers, you might be able to argue, especially if it's just pot, that it's a nonviolent crime. And certainly individual drug users in that regard. And I don't think it's victimless. It's just self-victimization, and there's only so much you can step in between, as far as society goes, in between a person and their shitty choices. The only time you really, I think, can do it is when those shitty choices impact other people, right? That's where the helmet laws are kind of watery for me. Because the world needs more organ donors. I'm kidding. But the point is, in this particular, he's like nonviolent crime. Okay, the woman he pardoned was a cocaine trafficker and had enforcers working for her. All like mid-level and like third tier drug dealers who have people working for them have other people who beat the living fuck out of people or kill people on their behalf. So the idea that it was just kind of like a distribution scheme, like she was running it like a Tupperware, or a like an Amway, what are they, like a branch, whatever where you can get your own people, where you Ponzi it out to other folks, is horseshit.
Was in jail. She had 24 more years to serve. She served for 22 years. She had 24.
Alice Johnson.
Alice.
She was in the Super Bowl.
High quality. Oh, yeah.
High quality. What do you mean? What was high quality? The weed and the coke she was selling? I mean, honestly.
I said, how many years? And she was on a telephone call, and they were involved in selling marijuana, mostly marijuana.
Mostly. A little bit, some coke, maybe some human organs. I haven't really looked, but 80, 20, 95% pot, in giant bulk. I don't know what was hidden in amongst the bales. Trafficked children. It's hard to say. Mostly marijuana. Fuck me.
And she got like 50 years in jail.
But she'd be killed under your plan.
And this part, just watching him walk into this, where he denies it and then goes, oh, that thing, is just like the idiocy. Like all the people, like imagine you're sitting next to Bill Barr, John Bolton. I mean, let's just say you're in hell, and but in an alternate universe, and they've passed away, and so have you, and you're in hell, on a day pass, because it gets a little boring in heaven. I don't know why you're there, but it's not up to me. But you're standing next to them when they see this. When Rex Tillerson sees this clip. When Scaramucci sees this fucking, when Michael Cohen sees this clip for the first time.
Huh?
As a
Huh? 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 Huh?
Here I am like an idiot.
Oh God, that is so good. It's the idea that he just, but she would have, yeah, mostly marijuana. And then watch this.
Like 50 years in jail.
but she'd be killed under your plan.
Huh?
It never even fucking occurred to him.
As a drug dealer.
No. Under that?
Legal. Yeah, look.
Here I am like an idiot.
I mean, for look at his big dumb face. All right, this is his policy. He made this up. This was a selling point. He was gonna sell this shit, and of course, what he comes to in this, spoiler alert, is we'll kill people going forward. We're not going to retroactively go back in time and murder people, because apparently this whole idea that every drug dealer has a corpse, a river of corpses behind him, 500 deep, only starts applying towards the future, and all those dead people, their families just got to suck it up, according to this. This is all garbage, by the way. Don't even think for a second I'm having a serious conversation about any of this stuff, because we're only dealing with the gibberish that comes out of this fucker's empty head. What? Huh?
Under that? It would depend on the severity.
It would depend on the severity. Would you work that out in the quick trial? How long does the jury have to decide the severity? What's the deal? What's the drug? Like fentanyl, absolutely a go ahead. Just kill him today, right? Absolutely. Pot laced with fentanyl, You know, did they know? Were they trying to, was it mitigatory? Did somebody else sell it? Was it a factor of distribution? Does that person, what do we just cut off a leg? We'll just amputate. But that's how we'll get mitigatory with the law. You know, if you do fentanyl or oxy, we'll kill you unless you're the wild and wonderful whites of West Virginia, in which case we'll break your knees. And if it's pot that's sold to someone over the age of 40 with glaucoma, we're just going to poke you in the eye. And then if if you sell it to somebody in their early 20s, we kneecap you. And then if you sell it to a kid, I think we have to set you on fire. I think we have to. Anybody, and by the way, I don't mean children. I mean anybody I would call a kid, which is almost anyone.
Would depend on the
this ad. She's technically a former drug dealer. She had multi-million-dollar.
By the way, he says she's technically a former drug dealer. Watch how Trump seizes on the phrase former. He's like, former drug dealer. Yeah, she's not a drug dealer anymore. You know why? Because she was arrested and she went to jail. And she's on, effectively, if she ever deals drugs again, she would get a harsher sentence because she had her sentence commuted and she took advantage of that free time out to go back. And she's aware of this. Therefore, the punishment part of this worked.
Cocaine ring.
Any drug dealer, look.
So even
Yeah, look.
free health care for illegal. Yeah, look.
Oh God, it's just so good. It's so good. It's so good. It's
Illegal.
so...
Yeah, look. Alice Johnson in that ad.
She can't do it, okay? By the
Yeah, all right. Now she's not allowed. I pardoned her. She can't. She of all people. I let her out. She can't do it anymore. She can't do it again. I'm trying to say, if she does.
way, if that was there, no, she wouldn't be killed. It would start as of now, so you wouldn't go to the
No, I
past.
know, but your policy.
It's like, yeah, I know you won't retroactively murder people for a change in the law because that's fucking insane, you crazy asshole.
No, but starting now, yeah. I focused on nonviolent.
Yeah.
Free health care for illegal. Yeah, look.
Here I am like an idiot.
God damn, that's so good. It's so good, guys. That's so fun. Oh, it's rough. Oh. Squirrel. Yeah, the hair's a little bit, his hair was a bit rough. That's so good. Yeah, ex post facto, exactly. Like he knows what that means. Obviously, we couldn't post factor it. And Jesus Christ. Oh, God. It's so. Oh, God. Oh, yeah. We have to. Yeah, we're going to grab sound bites from that. No doubt. Shit. Yes, a yard full of rakes with shit all over them. Yeah, like each rake on the end of the rake handle at the very end is a pie tin full of shit. Just her cap. The best people part now. Yeah, I know exact. Oh, okay. The best people part. Oh, thank you so much. I know the best people. Oh, yeah. Shit. Trump killed way more Americans than any drug dealer by ignoring COVID. Yeah, I mean, and more like American spies and our ally spies than like anybody since like the height of the KGB killings in in the 80s. Fucking hell. How do you just... you're watching Hal Sparks Mornings Megaworldwide, by the way. Welcome. Hi. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Subscribe on Twitch, twitch.tv/HalSparks. Helps us out a lot. And then, of course, subscribe on YouTube. I dare you. I'm being shadow banned. The deep state algorithm has come for me. Therefore, you must subscribe. I don't think they're buying it. I think when I say it, it sounds as much like the other bullshit they hear when people say that. You gotta sit there.
Here I am like an idiot.
I know, it's just embarrassing. So, all right, let me, if I may. God damn. Those pieces, and there's a whole second half today. I'm going to do that this afternoon because we got to do the whole thing. And the first one was like choppy, so I'm going to try and make up for that later on. By the way, let's see if we can find this right here. Do I can't show the here's last night. Yep. Like my belt buckle. I can't I don't even know what this sound is. And by the way, I went up an octave because they downtuned half a step, and so it was way lower. Here's the thing. I think you do the songs in the original tuning. If you're gonna jam them, if you're gonna tribute them, if you're gonna do those songs, then do those songs or don't do those songs. And so there was an executive decision made without my consultation to do the whole show in E flat, because some of the songs are in E flat, like which is downtuned half a step for the who's at home. The Black Album on for the most part until I think Death Magnetic was downtuned half a step. So they just went there and stayed there. I personally think you do bring two guitars, dude. Anyways, so we did it half a step. So I half step down. So when you do that, sometimes the only thing you could do to comfortably protect your vocals so you're not singing down into your like guttural part of your vocal cords is to go up. Yeah, this is a good time. So I know I am enjoying myself when my goal, so you guys know, when are you going to do hip hop? When I stop hating it. Just don't like it. There's some stuff I like, but I just don't, not enough. But my goal when I sing at the jam especially is to disappear. Like I want to lose my mind while I'm singing. That's my measurement for success for my performance. If I hit the notes and all that stuff is there's a great quote from Steve Vai, and I know I'll butcher it right now, but it's the idea that the goal of mastery, and he's talking about the guitar, mastering the instrument. The goal of mastery is not virtuosity, but abandon. That it isn't to become a virtuoso, it's to lose yourself in it, to be so connected with the instrument that you don't have to think of any of it. You don't have to go, look what I'm doing, look what I'm doing. It's just there. And that's what I'm kind of seeking, and that's what I use the jam for myself. That's what I get back from it the most as a performer, is that each time, because it's a challenge to, learn new songs a lot of times, or switch over to, like if it's a regular song, if there's a regular song that I'm, I know if I can do that, it's great, but that's easier for me to do that, to get there, because I already know it and I'm halfway across over the bridge. But in this particular instance, a lot of these I'll learn just for the jam, and it means diving into it for like 3 days beforehand to just kind of wind myself up in it so that I can just pop the spring when I get up there and enjoy myself. You mean attaining the 9th level? To reach that upper level, your mind, body, and soul must be one. It's a sacrifice. It takes hard work. It's a way of life. You're not a headbanger? That's okay. Their S&M album with the full orchestra was amazing. I agree. I was there. Dan, Boston, Brian. And I was at the second one as well. with my my good friend Stephen Brewer, who's in Lions at the Gate. He's in the band Lions at the Gate. He's an amazing guitar player and a sweet guy, and he's on tour, I think, right now. So I have a lot of friends that I never get to see, and Steven's one of those guys where we're like, almost. Hey, are you in? Nope. Yeah, I was at the taping of that. Oh, Steve Vai's "For the Love of God," Grumpy Cat is one of my favorite. It's my favorite instrumental guitar song of all time, and there's a lot of those because I grew up listening to bluegrass. My dad built Dan Crary's house. He was the architect on Dan Crary's house. Dan Crary's an amazing flat picker. He's just an incredible guitar player. So we're surrounded in my family with instrumentalists. We know Bela Fleck. You know, he's a family friend, and so I know a lot of instrumentalists. But "For the Love of God" is the best guitar song for me. And again, that doesn't mean it will be for anybody else. So yes, Hillbilly, absolutely. So you have too many incredible stories, dude. You have no idea. He'd love to see Vikas playing dueling banjos. I think that can be arranged. I think I have one of my banjos here. The Kitties are good. Chud's going to be on antibiotics starting tomorrow. That interview with Dee Snider was so great to see. Top down respect for House. That's great, Treva. Thank you. We'll do more of that. I'm working on it. Glenn Danzig is becoming Steven Seagal. Thanks very much. Although I will say that I'm taller than Glenn and way slimmer than Steve. So thanks. Fi Solo, when I saw Zappa play Zappa live, brought tears to my eyes. You know the story about how he ended up in Zappa? I don't know if this is, 100% true or part mythology, but I love it. Steve Vai showed up at a Zappa show when he was 15 years old and said, "I want to be in your band." And Zappa said, "If you can chart the whole show and give it to me by tomorrow, you're in the band." And he was joking. And that night, from memory, Steve Vai charted, meaning wrote out the drum parts, wrote out the guitar parts, wrote out the notes, like charted every instrument's parts and gave it to him the next day when he was 15 years old. Yeah. Exciting all the women in the chat. Yeah. Amazing. Hard to compete with Glenn Sexy. I'll try though. Marvy Marie says Kiss sucks. Marvy, let me explain something to you. I don't know if you're still in middle school, but the rest of us aren't. Nobody listens to any band with your ears. Do you understand how life works now? I happen to love that band. That band has several songs that have affected me personally in a positive way that I love and sing and get excited when I hear them, and they feel good, and some of them are heartbreaking, and those are songs that matter to me. They don't have to matter to you. We're not in middle school anymore. I can tell you what musical tastes I have, what I like and what I don't like, but I in no way whatsoever have to justify the music I like, and nor do you. I'm a huge Kiss fan, and Kiss makes me happy. I have seen the band several times. There are songs that I just enjoy on their own. Some of them, like I said, have a deep emotional impact, and some are just like great rock. And Detroit Rock City is one of the songs that made sure that I never had an alcoholic drink in my life. So there you go. Zeppelin versus Kiss. There is none. That makes no sense whatsoever. Secondarily, I will take Kiss every time because I like lyrically, Dee Snider and I talked about this the other day. I have no connection to Zeppelin's lyrics on an emotional level. And a lot of times, Robert Plant, because he wanted to be a blues musician, would start off on a good path lyrically and then fall into "you're a mean mistreater" stuff, which I found very odd. You don't have to. And the Immigrant Song and Kashmir and Stairway to Heaven are reason enough for that band to exist. Yeah. Marge's Kiss sucks, opinion matters. It doesn't to me. and and again, it's not even an opinion, it's a choice they're making. There you go. I love Rush's lyrics too. I agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tired of the whole Zeppelin, Stones, Beatles are the pinnacle of music. Nothing else matters. It's so silly, right? Well, again, you're talking to somebody who's a dickish purist on this whole like make a list. Lick it up, profound. You do realize that the profundity of a song is not its net worth. Happy Birthday is not a profound song, but you miss it if people don't sing it to you when you're a kid. And it matters to you at different points in your life. And if you sing it for a grandparent when they're really fucking old, look how much they light up. It's not the profundity of the lyrics or the content or the melody, even. It's what it means to you. And anybody, by the way, who jumps in front of like you and your musical tastes on your behalf is very weird. It's a dick move. It really is. I don't know if I've ever heard a Kiss song. All right, well, I will. I'll recommend a couple, Jim. "Going Blind" is one of my favorite songs. I did a cover of it with my buddy Jason Charles Miller, who is awesome, and one of my Masonic brothers. There are the song "I've Had Enough" Into the Fire. If you like really hard, fast rock, because it's not really metal. It's it's edging on it at times, but that song had a lot. "I Want You," "Strange Ways" is an amazing song. Peter sings that one. I'll make a list. I'll make a playlist and post it. "Hard Luck Woman." Yep. That was that Garth Brooks covered "Hard Luck Woman." "How Play Misty for Me." Uh-oh. Cuckoo. Cuckoo. "New York Groove." Yeah, "New York Groove's" a cover. That's off Ace's solo record when they did the 4 solo records. "Black Diamond's" amazing. I love Mozart as well. "Howl's a Freemason Summoning the Conspiracy Theorists." It's true. I am indeed a Freemason. Kiss equals white suburban rock. Are you out of your mind? It was an attack on the suburbs. There is no Marilyn Manson or Korn or any of those bands without Kiss happening. That's like looking back at Elvis and going, I don't know what the big deal was about. Like, that's because you didn't live then. It's kind of, people look at this, and this is an extreme example, but people look at like the impact of certain bands, especially when they came along. Like the Beatles having long hair, like they're like bob haircuts or whatever, that fucking shaggy dude that they had, and like, why is that a big deal? Is like looking back and not understanding the context of the time and the shift that it made and the impact that it had. Is like looking back and going, "What's a big deal? Somebody discovered fire. I can turn on a bulb and it's a little fire inside all the time. I can go to my stove anytime I want. Like it's silly." Who snag about date rape? What are you talking about? Where's the date rape part? You're very weird. Was a trash artist? Since you're Mason, can you tell us who's buried on Oak Island? Not unless you are one. Marilyn Manson abuses women. Yeah, Marilyn Manson is awful. I love Journey as well. Pick a Kiss song? Like, what do you mean? Pick any Kiss song. I see. That's a tough one because Reason to Live. Can you donate from Ireland? You absolutely can, Alan. Thank you very much for coming to the rescue in this. Any of those work, but you can also subscribe. And then, of course, if you have PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, that's one of the ways to do it. And, of course, subscribing, becoming a member on YouTube helps. That's another way. Steve Perry is lovely. REO Speedwagon's, yeah, it is amazing. That was my song with my first girlfriend when I was 11. Was an REO Speedwagon song. Can't fight this feeling anymore. Um, Can't get right said. Alice Cooper preceded both Kiss and Marilyn Manson. Yeah, but without the melody. That was what was missing. And that's why he leaned more on the theatrics over time. Least favorite Kiss song? Domino. Time for Me to Fly is great. It's a great song. Can't name one Manson tune. Really? New Shit. I mean, he covered Sweet Dreams. Molly Hatchet. You like Domino? Yeah, it's just not my favorite. Love Gun's a great song. Listen to the harmonies on that song and recognize what you're listening to. Favorite, yeah, it's a good one. They still sound amazing, by the way. Beautiful People. Yep, there you go. Thanks for the memories. Pearl Jam. I love the first Pearl Jam record. 10 is amazing, but it's not a grunge record. It's that the production on that, I've said it before and it annoys people, but the production on the first album, the Pearl Jam album 10, it might as well be Pink Floyd or U2. It is fucking pristine. And the idea that it's grunge it got lumped in with that because they were all wearing the same clothes. Soundgarden is the grungy sounding band of all those bands. Nirvana, you could argue, leans more towards punk. Like it's pop punk more than it is, recreating a sound of grunge. It was just grunge was just the cheap production value that was available. Like, oh, let's just crank it out and just do it. But even still, like listen to Heart-Shaped Box or any of those things. Like Nirvana came around and their production was like, there was time put into that stuff. It takes a lot of time and effort to look this fucked up, right? Bad Company is great. Personal Jesus, right? He did a lot of covers. Spinal Tap preceded Kiss. No, they didn't. And as a matter of fact, the joke about Stonehenge is a Black Sabbath reference. When Black Sabbath was touring, okay, Doc, I'll get there, promise. When Sabbath was touring with Ronnie James Dio, I think is the singer. It might have been after Dio left and went on his own, and they had their third singer for a while, and they were doing they were doing Heaven and Hell, and they had a big prop piece of like a skull or something, and the venues they were playing going forward couldn't fit it. They were too small for the props, so they just abandoned it in a parking lot in I don't know, Indiana, something like that. Okay, so all right, trends. Here we go. Michael Cohen, because I guess please tell me we're gonna have Stephen Cohen of Tennessee. Okay, just own the fuck out of John Durham. Durham is just like eating shit right now. This is kind of amazing because these guys were like, they've been waiting for the Durham report. They thought it would just like massively like prove to the world finally when the Durham report comes out and when this guy, that's it. This is going to do it. And he's just farting into a paper bag and popping it. It is just the weakest shit. Watch. Well, here's part of it. Ted Lieu gets him really good too. Where are you? Why did this stop working? There you go. Hold on. I lost my menu for a second. I'll pop this up there, and I don't want to be that loud. Bring it down a bit. This has just been friggin' embarrassing.
Mr. Trump appointed you. You believe Mr. Trump has pretty good judgment on people, their abilities, and their character?
I'm not going to characterize Mr. Trump or my thoughts about Mr. Trump.
Yeah, so you think he's an idiot. Good. Okay, check.
Mr. Barr appointed you special counsel, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Trump has called Mr. Barr a gutless pig, a coward, and a rhino. Which of those is correct? Which isn't?
In my experience, none of those are correct.
So Mr. Trump isn't that good of an expert on character and judging people. In your opinion, he isn't, because he's
This is crickets.
none of those. He's not a gutless pig, but Trump says he is.
That's outside the scope of my report.
Also,
That's outside the scope of my report. Like, look at him, look straight into the camera. That's outside the scope of my report. Whop, 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 whop.
outside the scope of your report, apparently, Mr. Trump appointed you.
Mm-hmm. So good. And by the way, the right is taking that clip and saying that it's it's an exact example of him, like, yeah, special counsel gives a perfect response to an angry tirade by Steve Cohen. I don't know that he seems angry. He's just kind of serious about it. Just issued death to anyone associated with. Did he? Okay. What's this? Is it treasonous? Is that a?
You have a good reputation. You had a good reputation. That's why the two Democrats supported you. But the longer you hold on to Mr. Barr and this report that Mr. Barr gave you as special counsel, your reputation will be damaged. As everybody's reputation who gets involved with Donald Trump is damaged, he's damaged goods. There's no good dealing with him because you will end up on the bottom of a pyre. I yield back the balance of my time.
Sure.
Okay, that's the threat. He just means he throws people out like trash. Calm the fuck down. He just threatened all of us. My favorite, like, new pastime is watching Marjorie Taylor Greene take offense, dive into identity politics, and assert that threats are being made when they are not, when this is all they characterized any complaints by the Democrats for ages. Hilarious. Okay. Impeaching Biden. Yes. I'm going to raid my thing just to prove I can read. Introduced articles of impeachment Tuesday against President Biden that will force a House floor vote in coming days. Good luck with that. You are a silly person. These articles are crafted in a special way through the parliamentarian that forces a vote of each member on the record. This isn't just noise. This is the first real chance at impeaching Biden. For what? For what? This one has teeth. Just, yes. They're in a glass by the bed. This shouldn't be playground games in my view. This should be serious. Well, I think you're going to need other people involved then. Because you have, I'm just saying, if it's a serious thing, I wouldn't hand it over to inserious people. It's our responsibility to be the check and balance for this rogue administration. Yes, they've totally gone off the rails with this whole infrastructure shit. As a mom, okay, and as a representative of the United States of America, I am compelled to take action. Mama bearing it. Thank you for supporting these articles to impeach Joe Biden. Okay. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the will of our voters. Let's show. Is good Lord, get over yourself. Marge Taylor Greene, microblogger, imbecile. Republicans took back the House from Democrats 5 times in the past 100 years, including 2022. Only 2 times Republicans held the House. That's because ours honor their Only 2 times Republicans held the House. That's because ours honor their will of their voters. Get them there. Impeaching Joe Biden is the will of our voters because hold on. Took back the House from Democrats 5 times in the past 100 years, including 2022. Only 2 times Republicans held the House. That's because ours honored the will of their voters who sent them. I see. So she's basically saying that they're only going to hold on to their slim margin if they impeach Biden. Impeaching Joe Biden is the will of our voters because the overwhelming amount of evidence proving his crime. No, it isn't. That is not at all what your voters are saying. I mean, it might be in her district, but it ain't nationwide. That's the thing. And that's how you lose the House, is you chase these like little fiefdom arguments in your little like hyper red districts and think that is the world. Okay. Okay. Good. Hopefully it's Greta Thunberg and not Greta Van Susteren. Thunberg trying to do top climate warning that climate change will wipe out all humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. Yeah, okay. If you look at this does not, he's right. This does not claim that humans will be dead in 5 years. This claims that if we had up until 5 years after that tweet to stop using them entirely, or wipe out all of humanity. That's the idea over time, that the damage will be done at that point. And by the way, a top climate scientist, which again, single scientists will all say all kinds of things over time. She's not and again, what was she like? Yeah, she was 15 years old when she said, come on. Meanwhile, I choose Andrew Tate's life every single time over the life of a half-educated, autistic, doom-mongering ego cultist, and the only car I own is a diesel Tiguan. What? I don't know, but bought her check, and we've got to listen. Who gives a shit? Judas Priest Rob Halford sends message of support to Greta Van Fleet's Josh Kiska. Well, that's because he's a good person. Lead vocalist American rock band Polka came out in emotional Instagram. Good for him. Her. I don't know what the current pronouns are, but good for them. Good for they. Lock him up. 5 years ago, Greta Thunberg said the world would end Wednesday. That's not what it said. And this is again, it's bad enough when they mischaracterize, when they kind of generally mischaracterize what someone says. This is specifically mischaracterizing it. This isn't like the world's going to end if we didn't stop fossil fuels 5 years ago. Well, we didn't stop fossil fuels years ago, and the world hasn't ended yet. And that's not the point of what the guy was saying at all. It's not what she was saying at all. This is a specific kind of lie. You big dummies. I don't know how to feel about the Barbie movie. Honest to God. Because I like Ryan Gosling so much when he's funny and weird. I mean, I like Drive a lot. It's a very serious movie. He's fantastic. But The Nice Guys is like one of my comfort movies as well. I friggin' love it. Raptor Bible? Oh dear. Raptor Jesus wrote Raptor Bible, that's very odd. Entered the top trends. I see. What in the who? Okay, people are just grabbing the hashtag and piling on it. Jerome Powell, because the Federal Reserve has spent the last 15 months locked in an aggressive war against inflation, and it has eased, but at least one person has yet to express belief. The Fed chair, Jerome Powell. Is the inflation battle won? Not yet. Well, that's because it's not based on monetary. God damn it. It's a supply chain thing, you dummy. No amount of raising interest rates will shorten the supply chains. As a matter of fact, there's a point where it will shorten it will hyper shorten how do I do time? Yeah. It will contract the time that people have to shorten a supply chain to the point where they cut corners and drop shit or just abandon products entirely if you force them to, because they can't borrow money to, at a rate that makes sense. You can cause the supply chain aspect of inflation to expand, which is what's happening in some areas. You can cause that to expand, especially around fuel, for example. But I mean, fuel, there's too much production right now. It's easing the whole thing. That's a different conversation. That's lucky for him. But the point is, there's certain kind of products where if you go, you can't borrow money. So all right, and we can't build it anymore in the cheap place in China specifically, but some other places we got to bring it closer to home. That's really expensive, and I can't afford to borrow the money necessary to build the factory here. So people are rushing into loans and stuff that they can't necessarily pay, and so you have the potential for an industrial version of the housing crisis in a couple of years if you're not careful. Okay, just in Fed says we see stable coins as a form of money. Yeah, you'll have to view it that way because they're all pegged on the US dollar. Fed chair testifies the House. Okay, cool. We do see payments, stable coins as a form of money. Yeah, you'd have to recognize it. That doesn't mean you're going to use it. Yeah, you don't actually have a choice in that regard. This isn't him you're coming around to Bitcoin. It's that they recognize that it's a trade point, not that it's good. And stable coins are different than Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin is not a stable coin. I don't know why people that's just dumb. The hazier messaging suggests Jerome Powell is seeking to balance competing demands from those Fed officials who want to, keep raising rates and others who feel the central bank has done enough. That's why they're going to do a pause and that kind of stuff. This is what it looks like when a complicated issue is being dealt with. You're going to have these moments of stagnance and disagreement because you've made a bunch of moves and you honestly don't know if they've worked their way out yet. The 1975, easy. Something from the 70s. Flashbacks to the 1975 touring milestone. Okay, they're talking about the 1975, the band. Cool. Ted Lieu. This goes to the Durham thing because Ted Lieu calls him. I think he refers. He basically says, "Well, I'll show you." He calls him. He passive aggressively calls him a partisan hack by letting him walk into it.
Now, Mr. Durham, I'd like to ask you the following simple yes or no questions. Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was convicted, correct?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that one?
Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was convicted, correct?
That's correct. Not
Trump's
in
former
connection with
foreign
these
policy
matters.
advisor to the campaign, George Papadopoulos, was convicted, correct?
That's correct.
Trump's former deputy campaign manager, Rick Gates, was convicted, correct?
Not in connection with the Russian matter.
All right. Mr. Durham, you can hold yourself out as an objective Department of Justice official or as a partisan hack, and the more that you try to spin the facts and not answer my questions, you sound like the latter. So I'm just going to ask this simply. Trump's former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, was convicted, correct?
That's correct.
Trump's longtime advisor, Roger Stone, was convicted, correct?
I'm sorry, missed the last thing you
Trump's
mentioned.
longtime advisor, Roger Stone, was convicted, correct?
Correct.
In contrast to multiple Trump associates who were convicted, you brought 2 cases to jury trial based on this investigation, and you lost both. And so I don't actually know what we're doing here, because the author of the Durham report concedes that the FBI had enough information to investigate, and thank goodness the FBI did, because multiple Trump associates who committed crimes were held accountable, and the best way to summarize what happened is thank you to the brave men and women of the FBI for doing their jobs.
Yeah. Excellent work, Ted Lieu. Yeah. Gone are the days where like Republicans do bumper stickers and Democrats try to nuance the issue out of broad respect. What they've decided to do, and it's very clear, is amongst the congresspeople themselves and their staff, is that they are building what are effectively something better than both of those things, which is, what's your closing argument from a legal standpoint? Draft what you're going to ask as the moment, you're goddamn right I did moment from A Few Good Men. That's how you have to address all of these kind of, especially these Republican witnesses that are just there to kind of dirty up the scene and cloud the water. That's all they're there for. There's no resolve to this where they're like, aha, here's the final. This is proof positive that Biden did something bad or whatever. That never happens, especially with Durham, because that report was idiotic. But this is the strategy going forward, and it's spectacular. And I think it had a lot to do with the Jan 6 committee kind of introducing that permanent concept. And so Ted Lieu, he could have drafted up this on his own. But if you look across the bar at all the Democrats, this is how they're handling stuff. They are walking this thing like, you can agree to this. You said this, and you said this, and you said this. It contradicts this. And ultimately, what you brought us is therefore null and void. It's great. It's a great strategy. Yeah. Yeah, and this is kind of the general thought. Durham is just like a waste of time. And it's very frustrating for the Republicans because they're expecting him to like win this with some sort of out of the park hit. Here's Nadler's bit on it.
It's not correct.
No, I mean, there were multiple parts of that.
Did it take 4 years to complete?
Correct.
Okay. And with all these resources and all these people you were sent to help you investigate the investigators, you only filed 3 criminal cases. You only brought 2 cases to trial, correct?
Correct.
And you lost all the cases you brought to trial, correct?
Correct.
Here it comes.
In fact, 2 juries acquitted your defendants on all charges. And the one conviction that you obtained, the defendant pleaded guilty to a single count and never went to trial, correct?
Correct.
I will note that in that case, the primary investigative steps were all completed by Inspector General Horowitz. Perhaps you were better when it came to your report. From my reading, your report did not make any specific concrete recommendations to improve DOJ or FBI policies or procedures. In fact, your report repeatedly references the recommendations made by Inspector General Horowitz, almost all of which DOJ and FBI have already implemented. Again, your investigation lasted 4 years. 4 years and untold sums of money, and you still obtained only 1 conviction. You did produce a 300-page report, though, and that's given my Republican counterparts plenty of material to spin. It's not.
Yeah. And by the way, Philip Hittner is joining us, and I will bring him up in just 1 second. Let me move into studio mode, bring him over here. Lots going on in Ukraine today, certainly. And so a ton of stuff for us to cover. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pop this in there. And I'm gonna do something funny real quick with Philip in there, just for a split second, just so Philip can like live vicariously through this moment. Hold on, I'm waiting for the video to pop up. Might take a second. Where are we? And here we go. Why is that not in there? Okay, there it is, and hopefully it will work. It's being weird for a second. There he is. I see him. Now, not to brag, and hold on, audio-wise, there you go. Phil, can you hear me? You good? Cool. And for some reason, I don't hear you. Yeah, I'm not getting audio from your side, so I don't see the little. Yeah, I don't see your little meter going up and down. We'll work on that. I mean, I can always commandeer your audio.
Yep, now you're back.
There you go. Look at that.
Now I hear you, and you hear me, presumably.
Yes, I do. And
good.
And look who you are right now. I'm just saying.
I'm Dee Snyder. I saw your interview with I saw your interview with him. Yeah,
it was very cool. Yeah,
yeah.
He's a good human being.
Sure,
but so are you, and welcome to the show. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Philip Hittner at Philip Hittner on Twitter, 1L 2 T's, and then of course don't forget to subscribe before you even start listening to what we're talking about. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Just look up Philip Hittner on there, and you'll be able to find his channel. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. Hot day today. We're getting a good hot spring and summer. So
wow,
I don't envy those guys who have to fight through this kind of temperature. But
right,
mind you, it's not as bad as Iraq or Afghanistan.
Sure, but it beats the alternative too, because the cold is
and there's an advantage to it, which we'll talk about when we talk about things on the battlefront.
Right. Also, well, this might be related. We'll get to that in a second. But first of all, give us an update. Let me know what's happening there. Catch us up.
There's an awful lot going on. I mean,
yes.
The counteroffensive continues. There's weird criticism of it, as if they expect it to be. Zelensky came out, I think it was today or yesterday, and said, this isn't a movie. We're going to do this with as little loss of life on the Ukrainian side as possible.
Right.
So if we don't break out into some sort of massive, push, that's why, because we're going slowly, methodically. We've talked about this, Al. This is what we kind of expected. But there's this weird narrative that's starting to establish itself, and we're disappointed with what we're seeing. I'm not disappointed at all in what I'm seeing. I'm seeing exactly what I expected. And I tweeted about this, and I'm openly stealing this from Tom Hartman, but who made this analogy, but I think it's apt, and so I'm gonna keep using it. This is like American football, but we're running a ground game.
Right.
We're not doing passes. We're not going to try and grab 10 yards on one play. We're going to take 3 yards today. We're going to take 2 yards tomorrow. We're going to march the ball down the field until we get to the end zone, which is the Sea of Azov. So, I'm not upset about the way things are going. I don't think they're going, I don't think they're going badly. They're just going slower than what I think a lot of people anticipated.
People thought it was going to be the Kherson and the Kharkiv, lightning attacks again, and they're taking too much territory over a wider area for that to make any sense. There are places where they have broken through, and they do have those kind of short runs into that, but they do kind of, and I don't think Ukrainian troops did this. This was obviously like Russians, but the Belgorod, push in and then get out. The idea that you go in there, you splinter things, and then you get out, almost like having the same impact as a missile strike, but on a more like macro level. So
I've also said, we've discussed this in the past, is the idea that if you push along a large stretch of the front line, and then consequently the Russian defensive line, you might find, because now the Russians have to defend along the entire line, as opposed to a pocket or a spearhead that they need to chase down. But because it's all along the front line and it's this slow encroachment, they have to maintain defenses all along it, and ultimately something's going to break. And so the Ukrainians, I believe, and I think we're of the same mind here, and I think we're of the same mind with a lot of people who are really paying close attention to this, and who have some smarts about military operations, is that, as you're pushing along that entire line, something might break, and then you exploit that. You exploit it, but at the same time, again, Zaluzhny and Syrskyi, the top generals here, Zelensky as the head of state and the commander-in-chief, they're all saying the same thing. We're not going to do this. We're not, going to do a rush for something. We are going to. This is an entire. It's not an offensive. It's a campaign. That's a direct quote from a Ukrainian military guy that I know. It's not an offensive. It's a campaign. We're going to do this all summer long. We're going to push to the sea, and we're going to cut off their land bridge. That's the true objective, I believe, and that is actionable. That is possible. Seizing all of Crimea, seizing back the Donbass. That's going to be a real hard fight. But what you can definitely do is drive to the sea and split them in half.
Agreed. And I do think also that in many ways we've seen in the past where they've done head fakes around stuff, which is not a bad idea. It's very smart. So the idea that prepare them for an offensive so that they draw back into their safe spots to, so where they're close to ammunition and they're close to all that stuff. And then you bomb those sites and you take out more personnel than you would if they were all spread out in their regular stations. And the other thing is that they're also aware that 20,000 kilometers of Ukrainian territory along that front line in front of their trenches has been mined. And so the idea of just sending their guys steamrolling across it in a big rush to snag that land without being aware that that's how you lose men. And that's kind of, I think, what he was mostly referring to is that and so going around it, finding other routes, capturing people and going, all right, how do you guys get in and out of the areas where the mines are? Draw us a map. And then if it, it won't be very good for you if it doesn't turn out to be true, and then, which is what they say. And then in every situation like this, and then sending people around those areas to try and map them out strategically and give themselves pathways for a faster strike later. The other thing too is that you talk about it as a campaign. You build the idea that it's a lightning strike. They prep for that. Then you say it's a campaign, they settle back in, and then that's when you do the lightning strike in certain areas. That's, and they've had operational.
Yeah, I mean, the generals, both the primary generals, Zaluzhny and Syrskyi, and Budanov as well, who's head of military intelligence, are all really very competent officers. The Ukrainian the Ukrainians lucked out with Zelensky, but boy, they lucked out with their military leadership as well.
Hmm.
And they've also transformed the entire military itself as well, which was not lucky. That was planned, but they lucked out with the individuals that they got to lead their military, because these guys are, I mean, just sharp. They're really, really sharp and tricky.
Hmm.
Zaluzny in particular. So, did you see his picture this week with the little baby Yoda?
Yes, on his the patch, he had the
On
Grogu.
his
He had a
flak
Grogu
jacket.
patch on the
He
front of
had a
his
Grogu patch on the
flak
front of his
flak
flak
jacket.
jacket.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a character, that one. He's got a sense of humor as well, and he's got a sense of compassion. I mean, the other thing I like
right,
about him is the fact that he went to Yom Kippur festivities with the chief rabbi of Ukraine. He went
right.
to Eid al-Fitr with the Tatar Muslim soldiers. He has gone out of his way to go to the families of people who have died fighting for Ukraine, and expressed his compassion and his gratitude. He's a
Hmm.
human being as well as, which
Yeah,
that's why I think the Grogu thing. A lot of people are like reading too much into it. I think he just like putting out a Grogu
yep.
patch. I mean,
Right. And it need only
now
be that simple. Now, also, I think
you
the
need
point you're
only
trying
be
to, I
yeah.
think the point you're also trying to make is that they're trying to draw a very obvious distinction between the closed society of the Russian, the Putin-esque closed society of a singular religion, a singular thought form, a unified and distinct people
Or
with no
a
variations.
clear
Yeah.
dominant. Russia's a multicultural, multi-ethnic country. That's
Right.
true, but it can't be denied that the Russians are first among equals. I mean, to quote
Yeah.
Orwell, I mean, there's a reason why Orwell went on that rant about the Soviet Union. I mean, a lot of it, I don't know how much of it Orwell actually knew, but a lot of it was the Russian character, not just the Soviet. So
Right.
first among equals is kind of how the Russians conduct themselves within the Russian Federation. But in Ukraine, because this multi-ethnic state, this cultural multi-ethnic state, was brought together as a mishmash because empires had crossed through, and then the guys that were kind of left behind as power connections to other empires realized, hey, we got to live together. So there's no one dominant Ukrainian ethnic group. There's
Right.
Ukrainians who happen to be kind of more Polish because they're out in the West, or the Carpathians, or the Odessans, as opposed to the Donbass, as opposed to Kharkiv, as opposed to Kiev. All these kind of ethnic differences, because it's this patchwork. Unlike Russia, they have to work together, and so that's why I believe democracy actually will take root here. And this
Yes.
idea that it's fascist. Not to get off topic of the actual stuff that's going on the front lines, but this concept that this country could ever be straight up fascist denies an understanding of Ukraine, because it's multi-ethnic. You would
Right.
have to have one dominant, or an ethnic group or a cultural group that sees dominance within Ukraine, and
Right.
because of this
Which is
patchwork
exactly what
system,
they're pushing back against. And I think, like I
exactly.
said, I think by going to the Yom Kippur or the Muslim holidays in recognition of them, it's just like, in many ways, Biden putting up an LGBTQ plus flag and respecting different holidays, or saying, like sending out a Kwanzaa message, sending out a Yom Kippur message, sending out a Ramadan message, sending out a Christmas message, doing all those,
Hmm.
because that's what it means to be in a democracy. Because no matter where you come from, the idea is that we can collectively agree on a certain level of principles, no matter how we live in our own personal lives, under a constitution and democratic rule, where we can all have our say based on our true selves, as opposed to we all got to pretend to be one thing. Right. And so,
Yeah, and
they
we
are
share that
drawing,
with the Ukrainians.
yeah, and they're
We do.
drawing that distinction in Ukraine while they're fighting this, because it does distinguish you from the Russians in that regard, because they are doing the
And
exact opposite.
if anybody has ever spent any time in Russia, you quickly learn that the Russian ethnic group, and in particular the Muscovites, really Moscow rules because everything is the third Rome, all roads lead to Moscow, that sort of mentality. If you spend any time in Russia, you quickly learn that there is a hierarchical power structure, and it's not this, like they crow about being multi-ethnic, and it is. Russia is a fascinating, interesting, beautiful cultural hodgepodge.
Yeah.
But it's built out of empire, where Russia would dominate the next culture that it absorbed into its empire. Because it thinks of itself as an empire, it dominates that ethnic group. So yes, it's multi-ethnic, yes, it's multicultural, but it is dominated by the Russians. You don't have that here in Ukraine, and so that's why this whole Nazi narrative just falls
flat
apart for me.
Yeah. By the way, and our dear QAnon friends who always seem to be up about this whole, like, there's a cabal of a cabal who are adrenochrome, blah blah blah, and Trump and Putin got along because the Democrats are cabal of the adrenochrome, blah blah blah. Just for the record, if I may, Russia has legalized the recruitment of criminals for military service to fight in Ukraine. And the new law, and I quote, the new law allows the recruitment of those who have previously been convicted of terrorist and extremist acts, as well as offenses against the sexual sanctity of minors.
Yep.
You can now get out of jail as a pedophile if you fight in Ukraine, which you can argue that they've road tested that by with Scott Ritter. We're totally fine with you being a pedophile as long as you toe our line. And, we won't release these tapes, or we'll let you come over here and do whatever you want in the neighborhood we've set up for you and deliver your victims to you. So I found that particularly telling.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get off topic too broadly here, but I mean, there is you're right. There is a right and wrong here. And the society that Putin has built, I'm sorry, I know this is not nice. This is frowned upon oftentimes in our Western society, but I'm coming down off the fence and saying Russia is a deeply ill society that is worse than Ukraine. 100%.
Yeah,
it is
right.
There's a rot at the core, and it's from a lot of different things, and we don't have time to go into it. It's the Soviet Union, it's the trauma of the centuries under Tsarist imperial rule, it's the Orthodox Church with messed with people's heads. Oh, we're not on radio, fuck with people's heads, screwed them up, turned them right upside down. I mean, this relationship between Tsar and Church, and never stopped. The place is traumatized. The place is it's ill. It needs to do some hard work. Not to say that Ukraine is pristine, but at least they acknowledge that they have trauma in their history, and they're trying to deal with it. This is another, point of differentiation between the two. These are not the same countries, and this is what Ukraine is fighting to get away from. So
the other,
pedophiles. There's a law, 10 years ago, I think it was, roughly. They legalized spousal
beating your wife. Yeah.
I had a dear friend who I love with all my heart, who has since become a Z. She's gone Z. She's gone over to the Putin side of things. But even she was I came to see her in hospital after her husband had curb stomped her, and got away with it because he was the husband. Right in front of their 6-year-old daughter.
Can I just say,
that's the kind of country we're talking about here.
No, not here, not anywhere. No, like that's never going to be a thing. That's ridiculous. It is violently absurd and grotesque. I want no part of any country that would take that action. It's one thing. There are tons of countries in this world that look the other way or know that honor killings exist or things like that.
Toxic masculinity is everywhere.
Sure.
I know everybody jokes about that phrase, but it's real.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about here.
And in some countries, it's actively codified on a level that I don't think Americans can even understand. And I would just like to say, for the record, insofar as the legal ramifications where your shitty behaviors don't stop at the end of your nose and affect someone else, no, that's not happening here. We're not going to let that happen. And why would we want Ukraine to live under the the umbrella of a country that would even float that shit.
Yeah.
Well, how does that work? That's, it's interesting because Philip, when we talk about the sort of cultural issues you bring up, and for me, it's like the Brittany Griner thing is a great example of like, do you want any country to share the legal system like the one that that snatched up Brittany Griner, and that's how you want everything to live from this point forward? If you do, fucking say so. But I got news for you. It won't even be popular amongst the people you think it'll be popular with. And especially that shit. When they legalized spousal abuse, I was like, all right, why? Why would anybody want that as the controlling voice in their life as a government? Like that boggles the mind. And it's not even based on like some sort of ridiculous religious, like Bronze Age bullshit. It's literally
it's just the role of the man.
Yeah.
It's the role. It's masculinity. It's
well, it would be
what it is
it's
to be a real
Darwinistic
man.
dominance. Again, this goes to their sort of hunter-gatherer, Darwinistic, concepts where they believe in, God made man bigger so he can punch everybody. Like that's, and women should stand there and not get in the way.
If I can, it means I can.
Yeah.
I mean, I should. If I have the ability to, exert my will over another's, that's if I, because I can. I'm bigger,
right.
and by that, it is a it's a self-fulfilling kind of thing. It's like I can be
right.
violent and oppress people who are weaker than me because I'm bigger, and I can repress people who are weaker than me. It's a null-sum equation, and it's part of the illness that needs to be addressed in Russia.
Like that. I mean, a lot of us will look back on kind of like there were a lot of southern towns and some counties where they would let that shit slide in the United States in the 40s and 50s. And they would, and then previous to that, it was an understood part of life. And now Americans right now, that's illegal, and spousal rape is an actual thing. Like that's not okay either. And to talk about how in everybody's past that level of sort of misogyny or power dynamic existed everywhere up to a certain point, and then to say that the country that got rid of it amongst other countries that got rid of it are somehow the bad guy versus a country that apropos of fucking nothing just decided in modern times to codify that in law. It boggles the mind. So the thing I have on the screen right now that I want to talk about is that
you got there.
France has backed Ukraine's NATO bid. Finally, and the theory is, according to people around him, according to the Telegraph, is that Macron believes that if France backs it, then Russia will go, oh crap, I'm losing everybody, because he was sort of the one who was in the early part of the war. He was the one who was going there and glad handing and trying to be the carrot to the U.S. or the Polish or the UK stick, as it were, and the fact that they would come to this point would make maybe Russia come back to the table and go, it's we've crossed the line, and that's proof. That's the canary in the coal mine for them. I don't think so, but I do think it's a good thing. I disagree with Reed.
I'm all for it. Eventually, it's this opens up a whole can of worms, and we could talk. We'll talk about the rest of the hour about this and this alone. NATO membership is absolutely, I think, a possibility. Not just a possibility. I think it's at some point an inevitability. Ukraine's military is the best military on the European continent, hands down. Even better than America's presence on the ground here. Ukraine is just a better fighting force than anybody in the region.
Because they've been doing it. Yeah, they've been doing it against a much larger force. Yeah,
and winning, in a big way. And they're motivated. They're well trained. They're experienced. They've got good structure. They've got good tactics. They've got good now equipment, because we've given it to them. But they know how to use all kinds of different equipment, including old Soviet stuff. it would be a great addition to NATO as
Mhm.
well. NATO would benefit from it. The problem is it's there's too much corruption. They've got the issue with the Russians has to be resolved. Obviously, I don't even think Macron was suggesting. In fact, if I'm recalling his statement, he does say that the issue with the Russians would have to be resolved before NATO membership
Yeah.
happens. There's a long road, but there's also this question of would there be is the possibility of a European defense force that's separate from NATO? Could that
Right.
be, built? And look, this NATO membership question is a real big one that needs a lot of work to unpack. But you're right. I think it's a good thing. I think it sends a signal to the Kremlin that the West is standing very strong in alliance with Ukraine, which is really important. Um, but it's not going to change anything immediately except for a lot of goodwill on both
Mhm.
sides of the equation between the Ukrainians and the West. So
Right.
yeah.
There is, and this is from one of the Russian sites, so Russian Telegram channels. So I'll show this in a second. This is apparently where are we? An explosion at
Oh.
the oil refinery in Petromedia refinery in the city of Novodari
Uh-huh.
on the Black Sea
Yeah.
coast. It
Uh-huh.
says cause of the explosion is unknown. I'm gonna go with smoking. I'm gonna go with smoking.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
there's been a series, and there's a whole bunch of these things that are happening right now,
yeah,
which might be part of the fighting tactic. It might
yes,
be, look, because look, I think here's another thing, Al, and I
yeah,
saw that when I saw these recent statements coming out of Lavrov and Putin, where they're kind of like warning the West, where they're kind of
right,
like making these like you better not send cruise missiles to Crimea, was I think Lavrov's thing today. And then
right,
yesterday and the day before, Putin said, the West thinks he can do it, come and have a go, sort of thing. This kind of that, this kind of attitude. Um, and then the reason I mentioned that also is because Lavrov said that if the West wants a war with us, it's less looking like it's us against Ukrainians and us. It's now shaping up to be us against the entire Western world. Where if they
yeah.
want that kind of
50,
hybrid
50
war,
countries plus, right,
right? If they want that kind of hybrid war, what they're saying is that the war is not limited to the ground in Ukraine. We are going to be. We already are. We have been under, information warfare for years. It's been worse. Well, I say it's been worse. It's heightened and it's being employed in different ways once this particular shooting war started. But we have to step away from this idea that the war is limited to Ukraine,
hmm
and that's what I think the Russians are. And Shoigu made an announcement similar as well. What did Shoigu? Well, anyway, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Um, uh, the point they're all making is this is not limited to Ukraine, the territory and the ground of Ukraine. And as we have ignored the Russians in the past, and I have been up on hilltops waving my arms and jumping up and down and screaming, saying, listen to what they're saying. Don't look at it through the metrics of your own position. Take into consideration what they're saying. And what they are openly saying is this war is going to expand, has, but will expand greater beyond Ukraine. And the mention of hybrid war, I think we're due for some data attacks. I
hmm
think we're due for some real information,
right,
warfare campaign stuff. Q all the disruptive forces within, in particular the United States, will be bolstered by the GRU. They're gonna
yeah.
they're gonna ratchet up their active measures, which brought us Trump, which
One
brought us back to
and
Brexit.
also one
They're
of the
gonna do
things
more of
that
that.
North Korea is one of the things that like North Korea can supply them with support without supplying them with direct support, like without sending ammo or mailing anything. They have their little teams that they've loaned out to people for years. They loan them out to the Iranians, they loan them out to the Saudis. And it's one of the ways that North Korea makes money is basically loan out their hackers as like Cuba did with doctors for a long time. Cuba used to send, its doctors out in the world to basically and keep 50% of what they make, and then tax them after they got back. So they end up making less than, a third of what they would have made if they'd have just been in Doctors Without Borders. And I want to show you this real quick too, because this is very upsetting for the Ruskovites and Putin himself. Blinken, when he met with Xi, she specifically said China has assured it will not provide lethal weapons to the Russian Federation after they met with Xi. Blinken said, yeah, it's not so much that we're worried about you guys selling it directly military to military. We're worried about private companies, which there are no private companies in China, so that's why he brought it up with him. We've asked the Chinese government to be very vigilant about this, was the phrase that came with that. And that's, that's a big move. That I would argue is as big as that conversation is as big as the France NATO thing, if not more so, because what they're saying is we're watching the stuff you guys are shipping, and we believe and we will act as though it's from you guys, even if you say it's a private company that sold them ammo or sold them these hunting rifles that can be, and conversion kits, which is the other shit that they were doing. Yeah,
keeping China on side and realizing that butting up to Putin would be a bad move for them, I think is time well spent. So, but I defer to you on all things China. So,
yeah, and by the way,
I mean Blinken, all this hubbub about Blinken's trip, I just. The MAGA types are going to attack no matter what. So
yeah, well, the irony is like
there was no way he was going to come away from that good.
No, Rand Paul came out like 3 days ago, and he's going, diplomacy with China is crucial as an attack on the Biden administration, and Blinken's there. It's like he didn't even know. It's so embarrassing. Also, I'll show you this too. This is yet another fire. This is a train depot in Moscow. That, by the way, that's like fuel. That's fuel. That is a giant
stuff.
That's bad.
When it's black smoke like that, it's something burning.
Yeah, that's meant to burn flammable in other places, right? It's intense. Yeah. And yesterday, I don't know if you heard this. We were talking about it earlier, but there was a fire here in Vegas. It was about a few miles from my house, and the smoke was blowing around, and everybody's got itchy eyes today because of it. It's a wood fire. It was an apartment complex that they were building that was just frames. So the frames went up, and then it jumped the freeway and caught some trees on the other side and fire. So it was a lot of smoke. It took them overnight to put it out. It was mainly because they were worried more about controlling it away from the other buildings first and then putting it out instead of just dousing everything with halon or whatever. Anyways, point being is that you could see it from the house. It was probably a column of smoke about a fifth that size, and it was gray smoke. It was definitely, wood, and there was some other stuff in there too. But this stuff, good Lord.
Yeah, that's something that is flammable.
Yeah, that is definitely. To say the very least. Yeah, that is a fuel when it's white, for whatever.
When it's white, it tends to be like carbon that's burning. So something that's, so as you say, wood or timber or even plastics and stuff will put off a white smoke because you're burning carbon. Yeah. Whereas this stuff is burning because it's
it's like a diesel fuel depot. It looks like the top of a smokestack on an old semi truck. Just friggin' crazy. So
places falling apart.
Yeah,
they'll have you believe otherwise, but it's falling apart.
I have to say, if you look at how they talk about it, like they're getting increasingly morose on like the Russian media monitor stuff. Like it's what's his name? The guy on 60 Minutes, Volod. What's his name?
What Solovyev?
Solovyev, yeah.
I mean,
that guy
or Mardon or okay. Solovyev.
Yeah, the main dude, the guy who's got
the little turtle, like
the Sean Hannity of Baza or whatever, Z Baza or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, he increasingly in those videos, the one thing that I notice is the demoralized nature of the conversation. Like it has gotten to the point where he literally he said "oi" the other day on in the middle of it. Like he did this diatribe about, well, we got to tell the truth and people got to sign up and we should. There was a guy on there that I think you might have seen it. There was a guy talking about how they need to criminalize dissent. They need a law that says anybody who talks shit about the war, you can just scoop them up and throw them in jail. And they practically have that already. So I don't know what the hell he wants to ratchet up. He wanted people who are just complaining legitimately, not activists. Anybody who was like, I don't think this is going very well. What the fuck? Like he wanted that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when they were talking, like Solodyev starts doing this thing. Well, we need people who are, if you're not from here, you shouldn't be able to even talk about it at all. And if people need to join up, and we should have nonstop propaganda on there to get people to join. And if you're listening to the sound of my voice, you should jump in and start fighting because we need the fighters. And then he just kind of like there's this weird pause where he just nobody was going to fill anything in. He just went, "Oy." Like that. It was very strange.
They all know they're going to lose. There's another great video that was released, and I put it out on my Twitter feed. Was so there's a guy by the name of Girkin or Strelkov. His last name, his family name is Girkin, but his war fighting name was Strelkov or Shooter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He was the head of the Donbass People's Republic militia. He was basically the head of the Donbass proxy soldiers that took, that started the war in 2014, and those troops have been used as just absolute cannon fodder, and so a lot of them are actually, ironically, a lot of people in the Donbass are now more angry at Moscow than they are at Kiev. You don't hear a lot about it, but it's true. Everybody screams about, oh, poor Donbass was being shelled by the Kiev. First off, that's not true. The Russians broke Minsk more than the Ukrainians did by a large portion. But everybody who supports Moscow, well, not everybody, but there are a lot of those who support Moscow who did this whole thing about, but nobody ever talks about all the people in Donbass who were shelled and killed by the Ukrainians for 8 years and the world didn't do anything. Well, again, not 100% true, but also if the Russians really cared for them, why did they use them as cannon fodder since the larger war began? So anyhow, so Strelkov is sitting there safely inside Russia, and I am surprised he has not been arrested for this. But he put out something on his Telegram saying, "We're not going to win this war. Everybody knows it.
Yes.
We're not going to win this war." And he's still free, which is interesting to me. But he openly said, and even the commander in chief knows it. Everybody knows we're going to lose this war, and we can't win. There's no way for us to win, which is incredible.
Well, that was what they were talking about. Like they want
all
people
know
to
it
just
in their heart of hearts.
Yeah,
they all know it.
Yeah, and I don't know how you keep this charade up for much longer. You know what I mean? Like we're constantly amazed at some of the tankies that just have been selling this thing any day now. Oh yeah, it's coming. Russia, which has automatically has an army that is 8 to 12 times bigger than the Ukrainian was at both of their heights, has now lost more people than in the battle than Ukrainians have fighting at all. Like that kind of sheer numbers it's staggering. And again, I know we've talked about this before, that the Russians this is the plan. Just throw people at it until the other side gets like tired of killing your people. Like it's almost like they're trying to use humanity as a weapon sometimes. You know what I mean? Like eventually the other side will just get tired of murdering us and give us a break. And go, you know what? Let's talk peace because we're just tired of shooting you guys. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've always kind of fought with this same doctrine and this tactic, which is basically masses of conscripts. Just because that's one thing Russia's got is lots of people, and
Mhm.
artillery.
Right.
That's their entire, in a nutshell, doctrine. Um, yeah, and they clearly are hoping that they can outlast the West because they're thinking that at some point the West will sour on this war in large numbers, either because we're spending too much money, which we're not, but
Right.
that's the argument that'll be made, or that just Westerners will become war weary and be like, let's stop this thing. And that at that point, Russia will be able to at least get some gains in negotiations.
Right.
They can walk away.
Sure, we lost 250,000 people, but we got 18 square miles of new territory. The
Right, and you can still speak Russian in Donetsk, and
right.
whatever,
Hooray. Right.
and we can send a trickle of supplies to our our port in Sevastopol. We can't really use it functionally as a naval base anymore, but we can at least hold our heads up high that we negotiated some ridiculous thing to maintain Crimea. I mean, who knows what the negotiations are going to be at the end of the day? But that's what they're hoping for. They're going to be sorely disappointed.
Right. There's a distinct, from a historical context, there is a distinct difference between, say, the difference between Russia and its satellite countries and, say, the fighting in the Middle East that has gone on ad nauseum for decades. And one of the things is when people make comparisons to battles going on in the Middle East versus this kind of ongoing Russia-Ukraine back and forth, one of the things they crucially miss is that thanks to the Bell maps and an agreement made between the UK and the France and UK and the French during like the end of the Second World War, the beginning of the end of the First World War rather, and through till about 1948.
Empires were falling.
When the Ottoman Empire fell.
When the Ottoman Empire fell, when the Russian Empire fell, there was a lot of land that was left up for grabs. In the Middle East, it was the Sykes-Picot Accord, which was the French-English, let's divvy up everything that was owned by the Ottomans. That's why you have this internal squabble.
Right. Because they didn't they drew those map lines based on understood areas that the Ottomans had put together, which was part of the reason why the Ottoman Empire was on a hard fade, was because these sections that they had put together as states, as oblasts, or whatever they were calling them at the time, were contradictory. They had mixes of Kurds and Arabs and Sunni and Shia that didn't pay attention to the cultural natures of it. They didn't want to segregate the states in those areas, so they did it largely topographically, right? So when in the Sykes-Picot Accord, they basically just kept those lines with some light modifications based on where screw that hillside because nobody wants to be there kind of stuff. And so those lines were drawn by outsiders that created these territories, almost instantaneously, based on faulty ones from before, and then divvied them up as far as colonial uses, the UK and France in particular. And the United States, quite frankly, at that time, and I don't even people remember this, especially all the Imperial America assholes, we were against it. We were really against. We were against the Picot-Sykes agreement, and we met with. We tried things like the formation of the Arab League. It's what Jimmy Carter was trying to remedy a lot with Anwar Sadat coming over and the Egypt and Syria conflicts with Israel. We're trying to manage these lines drawn by the British and the French from a long time ago without muscling them out of the way and going, screw it, we're America, we can do whatever I want, which is the irony about what people think about what America does versus what America actually fucking does. The difference in Russia and Ukraine and Chechnya and Georgia is that those oblasts, those areas, were distinctly drawn based on regions a long time ago. Ukraine has been seen as a space, and there may be some variation of a few dozen miles, a question where the border begins and ends over the years. But since the times of the Tsar and, post-Mongolian invasion, it's pretty much been codified by the people who live there. Not the U.S. and NATO did not roll in and go, this is the Ukrainian-Russian border, right?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, there's a couple of things there because the borders did ebb and flow because empires came through here, and so Poland would get it. Poland would fight a war with the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth would fight a war with the Russian Empire or the Germans or the Austro-Hungarians or whatever it was, and the border would move 50 miles east or
Right.
west or whatever. So it wasn't, Ukraine was for a very long time this kind of like, I'll take a bite of this in that war, I'll take a bite of somebody else take a bite of that in this war, and so the borders were always kind of shifting and changing, which is kind of the problem with Ukraine as a colonial.
Well, I mean, that's the Germany, Poland,
Right.
Rhineland shit.
Because it was internal. Yeah, because it was internally within Europe, and the empires were right there, kind of like messing with Ukraine. And
well, they were fighting over territory that they were close to, which is very different than satellite colonies. You know, Britain and the edge of India, because Britain wanted the part of India that aligned with the waterways that go into China, because they were basically using it as a stop point to bring shit in and then go through the Suez Canal and bring their stuff up to UK for a couple hundred years. And so, but there's a distinction between that and say, fighting over a neighborhood territory or somebody 100 miles away or 1,000, even middle of your country, versus way far away, has nothing to fucking do with you. And
it's empire right on your doorstep as opposed to empire overseas.
Right. In which case, by the way, that's claimation of land by feuding tribes in an area. And you could argue that that's what the Saudis and the Iranians have been fighting about for control of that region ever since. It's the same fucking thing. The problem, though, is, like I said, is that and all salute to Gertrude Bell, one of the toughest women that's ever lived on the fucking planet, but she was the map maker for that. She drew out.
I know her grandson.
Yeah, the Bell maps. There's
he
like
used to go to my pub in London.
Wow.
Yeah.
So people don't know about the Bell maps.
People don't know about Gertrude Bell, man. Read about Gertrude Bell.
Holy shit.
She was incredible.
Where is that
she
biopic?
Had not been born.
We're talking about strong female characters. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, she taught Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Lawrence would have been nothing without Gertrude.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Well, they reference the Bell maps. Are they using the Bell maps in a lot of old? If you watch a lot of old period war movies from back then, anything that dealt with the Eurasian area at all, that you'll hear soldiers talking about the Bell maps or grabbing a Bell map or that kind of thing. That's specifically because those lines were redraws of the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire had it been sort of allowed to fall apart, and those lines have been redrawn. Kurdistan would be a functioning country right now that would probably be as big and powerful as Iran on its own. But the French and the UK stepped in. By the way, if you just let it happen, again, it's like one of those COVID things. You can just let it happen, but 1.5 million people are going to die. So part of it is, do we just stand back and let them die and then try to trade with who's left over? Or do you try and save as many people as you can because we have, we've been in business with those people for years, and we have cultural exchanges, and all this shit's been happening for decades. All of a sudden, it's like Lebanon right now. I don't know if people know this. Lebanon's a fucking shit show, and it was like the top Middle Eastern country for quite some time. They were calling it the Switzerland of the Middle East for a while, and it's a mess. And for all this talk about de-dollarization that everybody, that Glenn Beck and all these crowds, they're going to get rid of the dollar and blah, blah, blah. Turkey and Lebanon both, you can only buy stuff in U.S. currency. Nobody wants their fucking local currency anymore. It's bizarre. Anyways, we're way off topic. That's a whole conversation for another time. I wanted to check real quick.
Fascinating, but yeah.
And historically, like I said, that's the difference between
it's kind of colonialism and empire. I'm a little more cynical about what the Sykes-Picot Accords were about, but yeah, I take your point. I think they were both prick empires at the tail end of their power. Going, let's divvy up the carcass of the Ottoman Empire.
Well, because the Ottoman Empire, but in all fairness, the Ottoman Empire sided with the Nazis.
Was a sick man of Europe, and also was the sick man of Europe for 200 plus years. I mean, the decline of the Ottoman Empire was, everybody saw it coming. I mean, for God's sake, that's what the Crimean War was about, for fuck's sake,
Right.
So, look.
But
Anyhow,
the point
again, you're right.
I'm trying to make is
Way off topic.
that distinction between the Ottoman Empire specifically sided with the Nazis in World War One, and that's when France and
Sided
UK
with
were
the
like
Germans in World
yeah,
Bismarck's Germany in World War One.
right.
Yeah,
But ultimately, the concern was backing them on that side against the other two, and then the other two, once that fell, they continued to fight after World War II. They were like, "Fuck this, we're going to chop this stuff up." And right around the creation of Israel and all this stuff. I mean, this is a juggling time of immense complexity done in a mix between overcautious in one area and totally slapdash in others. And so, and the Ottoman Empire fell on its own sword while at the same time having no friends, which is where China finds itself, for example, right now. The closest example we have to what's happening in China right now is the end of the Ottoman Empire. That whole run-up that you're talking about, that's how people are talking about China, whether they're aware of it or not. And,
yeah, I'll defer to you on that one, but that
right.
makes sense to me as well.
And the difference will be, if it falls, and it will divide up into what are effectively the provinces. Like the Hebei province can be Hebei as a country. That will happen, okay? Once that happens, the people there will kind of build their own semi-stride. They'll probably stick to they'll call their currency the yuan, and they'll stabilize and try to go, we didn't like Beijing in the first place. We'll reach out and we'll do business with you and yada yada. And that's how they'll all break up. But they will maintain largely their own borders. Unlike what happened in the Middle East, which is a fucking powder keg. It's a mix between the former Russian satellites maintaining their borders as they're known in the last, say, 150 years, and total fucking chaos like the Middle East. But these fights will go on as long as Russia keeps trying to act like those borders don't exist anymore. Because the same failure the UK and France made about the borders of other areas, Russia is making about it in a personal way. We are that. That is ours.
Well, if you hear the Russians talk, the Russians say that this is an existential war for them. That this is so why is a war being fought on territory that is not internally within the Russian Federation currently since 1991? Why is a war being fought external to their borders, an existential threat to their internal existence? Because they're built on the concept of empire, and it is Moscow as empire, and Moscow expanded into these areas, overcame them, and now with losing their crown jewel and their colonial crown, the big jewel in their colonial crown, which is Ukraine, means that the center can no longer hold, and things are going to stop flinging off as the center kind of whirls down the plug hole. Because and they know it. That's why they say it's an existential threat internally within Russia. What happens externally within territory?
Well, it's easy to come up with an existential threat if you don't have a reason for existing. Everything is is a threat to your existence if you don't have a raison d'etre. If you don't know why you're there and what meaning you have other than taking other people's shit. In the chat room, I'm getting a couple questions and a couple points. CSL says it certainly would be nice for Hong Kong and Tibet to get some breathing room if China falls apart in that way, and that's exactly what will happen. Hong Kong will be the next Taiwan, essentially. They will be their own satellite country trading with the rest of the world because everybody will want to go back to sort of their mid-colonial idea, the idea of rented colonialism that the UK did with them. The functioning structure that they had there was very good for China. It was very good for it long term. And Tibet itself will be under the protectorate of India going forward and will be its own space. And they won't have China siphoning off water. And somebody else was asking North versus South China. It used to matter a lot more, but the Han Chinese movement in Beijing has basically made an attempt to push out all things Cantonese and squeeze the existence of it out. And it's not that different from Russians trying to salami slice their way across Ukraine, speak Russian instead of Ukrainian, move out Ukrainian culture and kind of take over the space bit by bit. While we love no, we keep Ukrainian culture and language is window dressing until one day the hammer comes down. That's what happened with Mandarin versus Cantonese in a lot of the cases. It's exactly what's happening with all the other dialects in the country. They are doing a giant broom under the radar where they're cataloging everybody's language, and then as soon as the cataloging is done, nobody's allowed to speak it anymore. You just go back to speak it. We protected your culture. We've got it on tape. Now you're speaking Mandarin from now on. It's the state language, and that this, it's
Very
one of
similar.
yeah, very similar to what Russia does. So I'm fascinated by the sort of people's ignorance about it. Okay, real quick before we get onto another point. Too late. Did you see the video of Putin stammering when he was talking to Zelensky?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and I'll show everybody in here. I don't know that you can hear it, but I'll play it for them.
I've heard it. Yeah.
А где он, Залужный?
Целый канал есть такой, где Залужный.
Я знаю. Мне кажется, что я знаю. Ну, вы у него спросите, где он. Но для этого нужно перейти на иностранный язык. Мне кажется, что он за границей. Я могу ошибаться.
Залужный, да, вот.
So yeah, so they're asking about this guy with Zelensky. Tell everybody who Zelensky is and why it might make him nervous. Can you?
Zelensky, the Ukrainian general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's the guy with the Grogu patch. That's Zelensky.
Yes.
It's Gennady Zelensky. He's the head of their armed forces, and he's a very capable, wily, cunning. I mean, he will be studied. His actions will be studied in military academies because he's conducted this war masterfully. So yeah, that's right. What's that? They ask him about him and his health or something. Is that right? Am I remembering that clip properly? They ask him something about how his health is. Zelensky.
Well, and also Zelensky is making this case, like I think on the regular, a lot of them drop this thing that Putin isn't well, and everybody's kind of, I think, pointing to the fact that he starts stuttering as soon as the guy's name comes up because he's either mitigating what he's going to say, enraged or fearful, depending on how you want to take it. I think it's really either one of the doubles is on the fritz, or he's just, I don't know, you catch him in a moment where he's talking like a real person. But for him, that's a big deal because he's a trained KGB agent and he recognizes the power of every single syllable. And especially in that situation. So the idea that he's going, I don't know, he's starting to, I think he's watching a lot of Steve Bannon and picking up a lot of habits. Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely, he's showing the toll of this war.
Yeah.
He's not doing well.
Right.
Yeah. So are we wrapping up here? We're getting close.
Yes, we are. We got 2 minutes left.
Okay. So, well, then I won't leave out what I started this conversation. We were talking about the heat wave we're undergoing, and I wanted to say that there might be an effect on the battlefield, and that is because we are seeing pictures now coming out of the dam, the reservoir, the Kakhovka Dam,
right,
when it was blown. Now all the water has flooded out into the Black Sea. But something that a lot of people are saying the Russians didn't expect or didn't account for is that once you have drained that reservoir and under the hot sun of this current heat wave, in a couple of weeks, that's going to be dried out. And that's going to be that potentially is an entire new stretch of front line that the Ukrainians could conceivably, march through. The Russians have, in essence, opened up this massive gap by draining the reservoir, letting it dry out. Light infantry, light mechanized infantry,
roll right over it.
Even armor could roll right through it, and that would be an new open line. The idiots. I mean, now look, we don't know for sure. There's talks that they might have mined the other side of the reservoir, yada yada yada. But there's no disputing the fact that this opens up a huge stretch of territory where you don't have to do an amphibious landing. You can just it narrows to a very, very small stretch on the other side of the reservoirs. So they may have. Now it's still not worth drowning, dozens of people and causing billions of dollars of destruction by letting that dam blow and letting the water flow through.
But the blowback on it is kind of telling.
If there's a silver lining, how just delicious would that just desserts be if indeed the Ukrainians capitalize on that and are able to make military gains because they have a whole new stretch of territory that they don't have to do, a crossing, a river crossing.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned the heat at the beginning of our
Absolutely. Thanks, Philip Bittner, for being with us. Appreciate it, brother. This will be a part of the new podcast on my YouTube channel. I'm going to move my interviews into a chunk so people can watch them separately as their own kind of, to keep track. Check our work as we've been going along, because I think our conversations have held up over time better than almost anyone. I would say, for the record. And on our way out the door, Baza is reporting that partisans have blown up a railway in Crimea. Just now, Crimean Gauleitier confirmed the damage to the railway near Feodosia. Reported by RBC Ukraine, citing the Telegram channel, the so-called head of Crimea, Sergei. Train traffic will be restored within 2 hours. That's what they said about the bridge as well.
That's a huge summer residence. Lots of people have their summer cottages. Russians have their summer cottages.
And they are in the middle of an evacuation, apparently, because the Russians have told people in Crimea and the Kherson regions to get out. So they've been softly advising them to beat feet, to take it on the heel and toe, to amscray. And apparently a bunch of them were taking that up. And then the railway was attacked. And it was like, here, I'll show you the picture on our way out real quick. This is... That's not minor. That's not. You're not going to restore that in 2 days.
Yeah.
And then
as
soon as they restore
all the tankies, you're gonna have to try and explain that.
Explain that, right?
I'm still seeing them say, inevitably Russia's absolutely going to win this war, and I'm like,
nope,
no,
not even close, dummy.
The opposite.
Yeah,
there's no way Russia can win.
You're better off backing Trump in his coming court cases.
Yeah.
Anyways, Philip, thank you so much. I want to remind everybody to follow Philip Bittner.
Saturday.
Yeah, well, follow Philip Bittner on Twitter and of course on his YouTube channel. Just look up Philip Bittner and you can subscribe, watch his vlogs, and get kind of his long form pieces as well. And we'll see you on Saturday for the radio show as well, and kind of pick up from there. Obviously, there's a lot of movement going on. It's good to talk to you, brother.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah.
We'll see you on Saturday.
Okay, cool.
All
right. Thanks, guys. By the way, thanks for joining me this morning. And I think I got through it okay. Yeah. Let's we got through it. All right. Well, hold on. Let me get you in here. Chat room. Yeah. Not bad after a night of rocking and rolling and whatnot. And okay, I'll catch you later. Yes, I will see you guys later. I'm definitely going to cover, CSL, we're definitely going to have to cover the second half of that interview. And then some of the Durham stuff, I'd love to see. I want to see if there's any freakouts. I don't want to watch it, though, and preload myself. But if there's any Republicans responding to how the shit show that was Durham, because they're so disappointed. And I have to say that I do enjoy that a little, maybe more than I should. Yeah, a little more than I should. So so anyways, love you guys. And I will see you this afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific time. If you're new here, welcome to the show. Don't forget to subscribe. Why aren't you subscribing? You should subscribe. Why haven't you subscribed already? Chat room, tell them they should subscribe. I'll wait. Oh, and another thing.